Hi, and welcome to the End of Life Journey and Beyond, the Sands of Time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc, and I'm a bereavement specialist. And hi, Susan, it's good to see you.
Hi, welcome everybody today, and thank you for joining us. My name is Susan Capurso. I'm an end-of-life doula and legacy specialist, and I'm so grateful to be here because we have a guest today that will bring all of us some great value. I want to introduce to you Vincent Giacalone. He's Long Island's professional organizer. He provides organizing and decluttering services to help avoid time-consuming chaos and to be more productive in your personal and professional life. As a professional organizer, Vinny can be a valuable resource for families going through any type of transition, as well as before, during, and after end of life. And this is why it was so important for Vinny to join us today. And I can't wait to hear about some of your services, Vinny. So welcome.
Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate being here. Thanks for inviting me, and that was a
Of
wonderful
course.
introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're
So,
welcome. So tell us a little bit about you and your business and some of the things you do.
okay. So, I started this business this July will be 9 years ago. It's really getting up there. I've
Hmm.
had a wonderful time doing it. As a professional organizer, I primarily at this point have worked a lot with, just everyday general homeowners who have all kinds of clutter issues or chaos or whatever they have in their home. And the interesting part is that, and it's true for all of us, I find that, as I work with people is since you're in your home, it obviously is the most stressful and, it causes the most anxiety and depression and all these really negative feelings. But we're all the same. Um, Regardless of what it is, it could be the garage, it could be the kitchen, it could be a closet. It doesn't really matter what room in the house we're talking about. Every one of my clients feels exactly the same way. You know, and I've learned that my role really in this is not to continue to belabor on what they already feel. It's quite the opposite. I want to just focus on the task at hand and how we're going to help or how I'm going to help them resolve it. And we'll put together a plan and we're just going to work through the plan because as I remind people, whatever they're dealing with, it didn't happen yesterday, didn't happen last week. In often cases, it's something that's happened over a very long period of time, in many cases, years, that this has gone on. So I like to tell them,
Of course.
relax, stay calm. We're going to get through it. So,
Together. Yeah. And I
yes,
have two questions for you before we move
sure.
forward. So the first one is, what got you started into this career? Okay, your business. And the second question is, like the pizza man doesn't bring home pizza for his family, how organized is your house?
All right. So to deal with the first question you had is a great question. I came out of the corporate world. I worked for a variety of companies over the course of my lifetime. Did something that was completely different than organizing. However, in my brain, it is connected because I used to do business analytics and sales analytics and actually visual merchandising on a retail, for retail stores. But I worked primarily for a consulting company most of my career. And in my head, it's organizing because I used to organize data and information and put together presentations and charts and graphs and spreadsheets. So flipping over to now organizing with people in houses, I'm just, it's just instead of data, I'm doing people's stuff. So it still is this, in my head, it's still the same way in that I'm still helping people organize things and make sense out of the chaos that they see. And I really enjoy doing it. It's the way that I'm wired. I just love looking at something and trying to find a solution to the problem, and I always believe there's always a solution. There's always something that can be done. Often, when I do work with my clients, they'll always feel
Well, I
like,
tell you,
you
I've
know,
seen a few of your photos, before and after photos, not to interrupt,
no,
sorry.
no.
but they're amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you. It has a lot to do with the client themselves. I mean, when people call me to come in, you know, I tell them right from the start, they have to be engaged with the process. It's their stuff. There's very few situations where it doesn't require them, because I don't know what you want to do with your things. We'll talk about it. I'll help them set up a plan. You know, we'll certainly, and I'll give recommendations and suggestions on how to resolve it. But, you know, really when it comes down to making those decisions, you know, I want them to have a say in it. And I do it intentionally because, from my point of view, they need to have a stake in it. They need to have some responsibility in dealing with
Be
their own
accountable.
things.
Yeah.
There's an accountability, absolutely. So, and I recognize that. And when I set up my programs with them, I take all that into account. And a great example of that is that when I set up my sessions with clients, I have very specific start and stop times that I agree with them, or we set up together. And I do that intentionally because in most cases, the reason why most of us have some disorganization is because we don't hold ourselves accountable. So I find that I've had to hold them accountable to a time schedule in order for the project to actually, you know, make some progress and get some things accomplished. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
Now I just thought of this question. So how do you take on a job? What is that process? Like my biggest thing, my problem in my house is the junk drawer in my kitchen. Okay. And it gets so bad that I end up taking the junk drawer and putting it into a bag and putting it into the basement. I have about 5 of them down there.
Okay.
Okay. I've never taken the minute to go through and clean out and throw out. So you wouldn't come into somebody's house for a junk drawer. So what's kind of your criteria?
That's listen, I've handled junk drawers, and that's not the whole project, but that's part of the project. So it's very simple. I break things down very simply for my clients. And I came up with an acronym that I use, and it works. I use ACE, and that means I come in when someone calls me. First, we do an assessment. I start right from the time that they call me. You know, let's have a conversation. I really want to understand the background of what's going on when they call me about a particular project. And as far as what the project is, at that point, it doesn't matter. I don't care what room it is. It could be the whole house. Let's do an assessment. I want to start gathering information right from the get-go on the phone call. If they want to continue to move forward and I could help them and it's the services that they're looking for, I'll set up a consultation. I'll come visit the house. We'll do a walkthrough. A lot of times, and the reason why that's so critical is a couple of reasons. One is that it gives me a visual of what's going on. They might provide a great description, but seeing it can be very different. The other part of it too is that, like you mentioned, your kitchen with the junk drawer. So if I use that as an example, you might say to me, "Oh, this is the worst room in the house. Oh, you know, this is what I need to fix. It's what's causing all my stress." And you're 100% right. It is. However, as a professional, I want to see the entire house, because what I found is that while you might think, "Oh, it's my kitchen that's the problem," the fact that you're telling me that you're putting everything in the basement leads me to say, let me look at the basement first and let me see, is there stuff clogged up in the basement that's pushing everything back into the kitchen, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely does. So you would
So,
come in and do somebody's basement, or you would come in and do somebody's garage.
mhm.
Do you supply, or well, they probably will pay for, but bins and organizers, and so it just looks so beautiful
No,
by the time
that's
you're
a great
done.
question. And what I tell people, especially for the first session, is the only thing you really need to buy are trash bags. In fact, I'm very specific. I tell them buy black bags and buy clear bags. And they'll always say, "Well, why do you want me to get 2 different colors?" And I go, "That's a great question. I'm going to tell you why. Because the black bags are for the trash. And if we have donations, what a lot of times they do, we put them in clear bags. And again, just a tip that I've learned over the course of doing my business is that if we put everything in the same color bag, and it has happened, and I
Yeah.
leave, my clients have accidentally either thrown everything away or tried to donate everything because now they forgot what they put in what bag.
They're
So
confused. That's a great idea.
yeah,
Thank you for that tip today. That's great.
so the rest of what you asked me was about the rest of materials. That's where the conversation happens as the sessions unfold. Um, because like in your case, you mentioned about your junk drawer, you're taking it and putting in bags downstairs. Well, if we work together on that project, it would be going through those bags to see what it actually is. And I will tell you, ladies, that what happens, oftentimes I'll meet with a client, first time we do a session, and they'll say, well, I don't really think I'm going to throw a lot of stuff out. I just want to reorganize it. And it never ceases to amaze me how once we get started, and they start seeing what they have and we take it apart, they'll be throwing things away. They start donating stuff. They're like, what did I do? Why do I have this? I bought it 15 years ago. It still has tags on it. And I'm just the guide pushing them through the process. So I'm not telling them what to do with this stuff. They do it themselves. So it's quite an amazing thing that unfolds when I'm working with
Yeah.
clients. They do this all the time and they end up cleaning
Just
out more stuff.
just like, what I do as an end-of-life doula. You're there to guide and support them during this, and things unfold and magical things happen along the way.
Right.
So that's really a great thing to know too. Um, Now, we spoke earlier before we were recording, and I know that you've been working on different transitions in people's lives,
Yes.
right? And there are so many transitions. Okay. And I'm sure you've seen all of them,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's divorce, whether it's, all kinds of transitions. So tell me a little bit about your focus there.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's huge. So anytime, you think about it, if you just stop and take a moment, you're talking about moving in or moving out, divorce, like you just mentioned, someone passes away. Maybe they're going to stay in their home for a long period of time, and they're going to, whether you call it aging in place or aging gracefully in place, there's a lot of different terms for it, but all of it has the same common theme. It's a situation where it causes people all kinds of stress and anxiety, very, because it's a life change, whatever that may be. And I've done these jobs with clients before, and I approach it from that standpoint of an organizer. So if we stay with someone, let's say, that's passed away, um, that usually falls now on the children, the 50s and 60s. At this point, they're probably 50, 60 years old. That's the ones I usually deal with. It falls on them. And they're already dealing with a ton of stuff. And I'm sure you've seen this in what you do as a doula. You have the families coming together. They've already spoken to, and they're dealing with the funeral home. They're dealing with the burial or the cremation, however they're, whatever's happening, that, decisions they've made with their loved one. They got to deal with the attorney, the accountant, the financial advisor. All these really important legal matters are already, and it's already wearing them out because it just seems like it's endless. And then they have the home. And now they have another huge problem they got to deal with because they know that mom and dad lived in this home all their lives. They were there for 40 years, collected 40 years of stuff, and probably in all likelihood have stuff in the house from when they were kids living in the house. And now they have to deal with that. And it
But I
really,
can see how that can be an extreme
oh, yeah.
conflict of feelings too, because the guilt that's got to be there, from getting rid of even furniture, or getting rid of stuff. But honestly, I believe that one person's treasure, even if you're the children of the person who's passed, it's simply not your treasure. Really, you don't treasure things the way the individual person does.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you do now with the cabinet full of the ugliest tchotchkes that you've ever seen in your life, but that was what she collected? Do you come across that a lot?
All the time. And it's really important to note that, it's a really, from my point of view, you have to be respectful. It's, people will say, oh, I'll just call the junk company, and they'll do a phenomenal job. I deal with several trash, with hauling companies, trash companies, and for what you ask them to do, they do a great job. However, that's why I was saying I approach it from the position of an organizer. So when I meet with the families, it really is starting as a conversation. What are the long-term goals here? What is it you're looking to do? So if we walk that through and they say, well, we're looking to sell the house. Okay. So when are you looking to put it on the market? Is it 3 months from now, 6 months from now? We have to start getting that dialogue going forward, because it's going to lead down the path of what you just mentioned about the things that are in the house. Because once we start establishing what the baselines are, I now work with them to go through literally room by room, all looking at all the contents. What is the stuff that's here? And helping them make educated decisions on what to do with mom and dad's things. It's not a very quick process, and it's not one that you just decide, oh, I'm going to just throw it all in the garbage, or I'm going to keep everything. There's got to be a balance. And so when you mentioned the emotional part, 100% correct. I'm not emotionally attached to any of these things. So what I try to do is, as I'm listening to what the family members want, to coordinate that with them. Let's go through the rooms and figure out, what do you really want to save of mom and dad's things? What do you want to keep? Is there an opportunity to donate this? There might be something of value. I have resources that can assist me with doing appraisals or antiques. Unfortunately, not everything is worth what you think it is. I've learned that working with the people with some of my resources. We live in a different world. There's pieces of furniture that, a great example of that is a china closet. You might have one yourself. Your parents probably had one. It was full of china, tchotchkes, and everything else under the sun. Young people today don't collect anything. So the china closet is becoming obsolete, because all the stuff that, either you or your parents put in it is also becoming obsolete. So, you might have a beautiful china closet or a hutch or a curio cabinet, and families look at it and go, oh my God, I'm going to get thousands of dollars for this. It's not the case. So you have to have those hard conversations too of, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to keep it as part of a family heirloom? Does someone want to take it and put it in their house? Among the family I'm talking about, or do we want to try to donate it? Is there an opportunity to try to sell it? What else can we do with these things? Because everything that we're going to do is going to lead down the same path, clearing out the house, because that was the goal they laid out, so that we could sell the house.
So essentially, really what I'm hearing is that you're more than just an organizer, right? You help people plan for the future. You help them ensure that their affairs are really in order, right? And then you hold their hand at the same time as you go through this process. So can you give us an idea? I mean, I know every situation, every house is going to be different, because it might be 1 room, 2 rooms, 5 rooms, 10 rooms. But on average, how long do you spend with that family in that home? Is there an average, a medium?
Sometimes it could take a couple of months. And what I mean by that is that it's not that I'm there with them every day. Sometimes it's once or twice a week. But really, more importantly, Susan, it goes back to the consultation part, when we sit down and have that conversation about what do you want to do with the house? So if they say, okay, I want to be able to put it on the market, in the spring or in 6 months, or whatever answer they give me, I help them walk that back with the timeline of, okay, in order to accomplish that, this is what I see that needs to be done. And there's going to be sessions I'll set up with them to guide them through the process, to keep them moving along. But I also let them know that in order to accomplish that, because I recognize that there has to be a balance between their availability, their resources financially, their resources time-wise, who's going to be in town when, that they're going to need to do this work on their own when I'm not around. So it's why going back to the consultation is so critical, because in that I'm going to literally write up all the guidelines in terms of how are we going to get to the point where they'll be able to put that house on the market if that's what they want to be able to do. So
in more of an emergency type of situation, you'll jump in and you need to get it done sooner.
right. The way like to look at it, Susan, is, yes, it's time sensitive. I mean, I gave you the average of, say, like 2 months, but I've learned in doing these projects that whatever time I spend is going to be considerably less than the family will do in most cases on their own. And I also remind them that whether it's doing it through me or they want to do it on their own, the taxes are being paid, the utilities are being paid, the maintenance on the property is being paid. They have to be concerned that nothing's going to break. There's going to be no major, say the furnace or the water heater goes. If mom and dad have now passed away, and now this is kind of the last step that the family's going through. How much do they want to drain mom and dad's resources? That inheritance that they got left behind. And it goes back to the start of where you were talking about all the tchotchke stuff that's in the house. Yes, it's important. It's memories. I don't take it lightly. However, when I look at the grand scheme of stuff, what I like to remind the clients is when you get past the mementos, when you get past those memories, and you have to really do look at it from a financial standpoint, the value is in the house. It's in the property being sold, not always necessarily in the contents, because if, again, like the china closet, if nobody's going to buy it, it really doesn't matter what you want to do with it. You're not going to get any, whatever you're going to get back for it is certainly not going to cover your taxes or your utilities. So you need to make some hard decisions.
Right.
There's no question that the value of your services is amazing. I was thinking about when I sold my own house after my husband died, and trying to make those decisions. I really need somebody objective. My son brought in a big, hauler thing, just throw things out. And he kept saying, just throw it out, Mom. But I'm hanging on to china. I'm hanging on to all kinds of things. And it's very, very difficult to be objective.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's not black and white. There's very few situations. An example of that, what you're talking about, Lisa, is that when I work with elder care lawyers, and they're great connections for me, when they are given guardianship of an estate, oftentimes that means that the person that they're now in charge of, either they've passed away or they're maybe in a home at this point, and maybe they don't have any family. I've had a couple of those where there is no family and there's nobody to pass those things along to. And the sad part is that when I'm brought into it, the condition of the home is so bad. It's amazing to find out that someone actually lived there in those very bad conditions. In those situations, yes, we're going to look for certain things. I may help the lawyer find legal documents, wills, any financial statements. But really, once after that's done, at that point, yes, then I bring my crew in and we just clean out the contents of the house. But that's an extreme side of the situation I deal with.
Would you come into somebody's house and help them just manage their paperwork and documents and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I have a couple of clients who are like that now. I go and I see them on a regular basis. And the fact of the matter is, I can't make paperwork exciting. It's not. We all have to deal with it. And it is tedious and it is mind-numbing to do. But no, I have a couple of clients that I've done that with over and over again. A lot of times for those same reasons, they'll call me up and they'll be like, I have my documents, they're all over the place. I can't find this, I can't find that. It's really important that what I look to strive to do in those situations is create a filing system for them and focus on the most important paperwork that they have in the house. Again, looking for the wills, if there's a trust that was designed, bank statements, financial statements, investment statements, and putting all that together, labeling it, putting together in a system, not only that they could find it, but in some cases, if I've known my clients well enough, and I have ones that are on the senior side, we're able to have the conversation too, that it's important to have this stuff because God forbid something happens to them. They get sick, they get hurt, they end up in a hospital, they pass away unexpectedly. I always ask them, if you weren't here and your family had to come to your house to find all these things, would they be able to find them? And if the answer is no, then we need to fix that. And the other thing too is that it's important to protect themselves, because if they spent a lifetime working and saving money and investing money in whatever they've done, you certainly don't want to leave it behind for anybody outside your family to have access to. You don't certainly want to give it to the government when it's not necessary. You want your family to get everything that you worked your whole life for.
Yeah.
Now, without giving me any numbers, of course, because every job is different, how, I think just people might be curious to know how they get paid. In my head, I'm thinking that you should be paid in advance because you don't want to end up walking away and then not getting paid for your services. So how does that work?
Yeah, no, without giving anything away, it's again, having that consultation, I walk them through, how I charge, how I get paid, how things get structured. The key thing that I let everybody know is that anything that's going to go on goes through me. And I do that intentionally because, again, recognizing that the families are already feeling stressed and have anxiety. The last thing that they need is, 10 subcontractors coming in and paying 10 different companies to get things done in the house. I let them know I'm the coordinator. I'm going to be the one handling all the pieces. And here's all the breakdown of the different pieces that I offer. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'll be able to bring in. They could use those services. They're not obligated to. But in terms of, what kind of range of costs are going to be involved, I let them know. There's some services I have that don't cost anything. There are other ones, if it's trash, based on, I have a general idea of what that's going to cost. So I try to be as transparent and upfront with them, when I start the process, so there's no surprises, and I will give them a range, and based on where things are landing with the work, as we continue walking through it, I'll let them know, okay, well, this is now I'm going to need a payment or an installment for this, or this, if you need the service, it's going to cost roughly this much money, so again, I let them know so they could budget that and plan for it.
Excellent.
I was thinking about the people who, we both experienced people being sick and going through that process.
That was my next question, Lisa, because often people have a terminal diagnosis and it could be 9 months or 12 months. And is this an area that's one of your catchment bases? I don't know what you call it, but have you experienced this? Do you suggest it? Getting your things in order then before you go.
No, absolutely. And I've had clients who have, maybe not been in a terminal situation. There's nobody I could think of off the top of my head. However, that doesn't change the fact that, I do have elderly clients, and they may be perfectly healthy. However, and I actually had a woman, her husband, when I met them, he had Alzheimer's. And I would go to their apartment. I was doing sessions with them. Unfortunately, he was in the shape that he was in, and I really felt bad for her. I saw them for a while, like on a weekly basis. I was helping her really primarily do some sorting and cleaning out and some organizing of stuff, while she and her home health care aide were taking care of the husband. And I was only there for a few short hours a week, and just hearing what she had to go through while I was there, it was really heartbreaking. He eventually passed away, and I was still, I still went back and worked with her. So we did, in that respect, I was doing prep work with them. Even as, he was going through his illness, she was having me go through all the closets in the apartment, And it was fascinating stuff too. I mean, that's the other side of it, is that when I get called into a project like this one, they traveled extensively over there. They were married over 50 years and they traveled everywhere across the globe. The funny thing was is that he had like an accounting background, and when I went through the documentation that he had, it was clear that he was well suited for his job. I was taking out all these accordion folders, and he had put together all the information about all the trips they went on. So,
Wow.
they'd go to Spain. I take out a whole accordion folder of their trip to Spain.
Nice.
So yeah, so it does have a positive side to it. It's not, this depressing, oh, I'm throwing out this paperwork type stuff. Some of it was actually fun to go through. And she got joy out of it too, because I'd be like, oh yeah, this is what I would show her, this is what I found. And she's like, oh, I forgot we even had that, oh yeah, I remember that trip. And
Could
that
you
was
help people put things on in digital form? Is that something you offer?
yeah, I could. There are so many services out there that do it now. I just point them in that direction and say, look, here's
Okay.
2 or 3 different services, and let them, that's their area of expertise to do it. So,
Perfect. What about people who have to sell their home for one reason or another, but they're moving to the other side of Long Island?
mhm,
Is that a service that you offer where you help them pack their stuff up and maybe help unpack it in the new place? Do you ever do things
absolutely.
like that?
Yeah. So, I look at when people are moving out, it's an excellent time to purge. Um, you know, Especially if they tell me, oh, I have this, whatever, 5,000 square foot house and I'm going to, I don't know, a 2,000 square foot apartment. Well, not all that stuff is going to fit where you're moving to. And they'll say to me, well, I'll just put it all in storage. And that kind of gets me going too, because I have nothing against storage units, storage facilities, storage, that you get dropped on your property. It has a place, if you're renovating your home, if you are moving, and you use those storage units to help get your stuff from point A to point B, that's great. But in my background, I meet too many clients who use storage as a means to take things out of their house that they just don't want to deal with. And I've
Ends up
seen it
like the
over.
junk tour bag.
Well, yeah, yes, but the part that's really sad about it is that the stuff that they put in storage, they're paying, I don't know, say $250 a month. So you're paying over $2,400 a year.
Mm.
And if you really say, people have told me, oh, I'm just, it's on auto pay. I don't see it. It's just $200 a month. What's the big deal? I said, well, it's $2,400 a year that you just spent. And I say it to them on purpose because it makes them sit down and think. And in some cases, yeah, they will realize that the contents in that storage facility is far less than what they're paying annually to store it. And I really strive to help them to clear that up and get rid of the storage facility to save the money and put it back in their pocket, and keep it in their pocket.
That's a good business. They make their good share of money. And I have
Yeah.
actually had a friend who didn't pay for quite a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Lost you. I had a mink from my grandmother. Uh-oh,
Mm-hmm.
can I hear you? I had a mink from my grandmother, and I put it in a Macy's storage thing because I couldn't part with it because it was my grandmother's. And when I think of how much money I spent in that cold storage, and finally realized that the thing was worth like nothing, because what happens to mink is it becomes more, I guess, dry, and so it isn't worth what it used to be worth. But it
Right.
represented my grandmother,
Right.
and I couldn't part with it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I see that all too often, people with the storage units. However, you're going back, I don't want to get off track, but going back to the original question about the moving. Yeah, I like to, I've gotten hired numerous times on jobs where people are moving. I may not pack the whole house, and that's fine. Oftentimes people will bring me in, they'll say, well, you know what? I have a great moving company, but I really want you to pack up my kitchen, or I have that china closet and I really want you to pack my, my breakable stuff. I've gotten asked to pack specific rooms at times. But it's not just packing. It really is. I combine it with the idea of, we're not just going to, because you can get the moving company to pack it. You guys can, you can get the families can pack it themselves. They can get their kids to come over and help them pack it. I really want to help them make decisions on what are they really going to bring to the next place they go to, whether it's the same square footage, whether it's less or more. To me, it doesn't matter. It's asking those questions to give them enough information to make educated decisions about what to do with those things, because the reality is that, there's a lot of wonderful, reputable moving companies out here on Long Island, and you could hire any of them. They'll do a phenomenal job. I know quite a few of them. However, they're going to come in and just pack up your stuff because that's what you're paying them for. And they're going to take it from point A to point B, and you're going to get to your new place. And that's often the time that they'll realize, I didn't really want this stuff, but you paid someone
Yeah,
to bring it here.
exactly. So one of
Or,
the things though, and I have to interrupt you here
yeah.
because you offer such a niche service within your company. And the example I'm going to give you is the china cabinet full of the tchotchkes, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have guilt, you don't want to get rid of it. Let me save it in boxes just in case I can give it to somebody one day. But I think what you do and do well is through conversation and getting to know these people, you help them figure out that, hey, if you just took two of these pieces out of all of this and displayed them beautifully in your new place, there's your connection still.
Mm-hmm.
And let's find a place to you know deal with the rest of it. But
Correct.
you help them come to that conclusion themselves, as it sounds like, through some of your prompts and suggestions,
Yeah.
while you're with them.
I mean, unless someone asks me, I've had clients who ask me directly, what would you do? But most cases, you're right. I really just want to have a discussion with them, and I'll give my, if they're asked, I'll give my opinion or my thoughts on what they should do with those particular things. But you're right. It's if it comes down, they just keep a couple of pieces. The rest of it is still good stuff and could still be donated. Maybe somebody else, they have a friend that they might want to give it to, or there's another family member that might want to take some of those things. I'm not for the position of, just chuck it in the dumpster attitude, because these are still things that are in good shape and someone can get value out of it. An example I had of that is when my father, before he passed away, he lived with us. We had a little space for him in our house that he lived. And after he passed away, I donated his furniture, and it was fairly new. And my kids were much, much younger at the time. And I remember distinctly when I was going through that process of donating his stuff and they were coming to pick it up. And my kids were like, yeah, but those were grandpa's things and you're getting rid of grandpa. And I had to think quick as a dad, go, okay, how do I get myself out of this mess? Because now my kids think I'm throwing their grandfather away. And I told them, I said, you're right. I go, I understand what you're saying. I said, but I'm actually donating it, and someone else is going to get used to this. So therefore, grandpa's going to keep living in someone else's house.
Nice.
And I didn't have any magic. I know that was the first thing that came to my mind. And my kids loved it. And they were happy with that. They were, really? And I said, yeah. I go, well, someone else is going to use this. And they were happy with that answer. It made them feel better. So, that's the way I like to position things.
Yeah, that's a good story. And you have that compassionate understanding, I could tell, just in this conversation, although we know each other from other things as well.
Thank you.
But you definitely have that, and that's such a niche skill to have to bring into families' homes. Now, you were speaking about transitions. So we talked a little bit about end of life, before and after, and then we talked a little bit about if there's a divorce situation. Can you just throw out to me maybe a short list of situations so that people that are listening today might hear that and go, oh, okay, yeah, that I could definitely use Vinny today.
Yeah, those the ones that you just ran through, those really are the critical ones, moving in, moving out, people going through a divorce. I've had a couple of families I've worked with. Those are always interesting because unfortunately, divorce is usually a contentious situation. So I have to kind of navigate the minefield in dealing with that because family is breaking up. They're Whether they're selling the house and splitting the proceeds or whatever their situation is, it's not a happy one. So, I really have to walk on a fine line in keeping them focused. Fortunately, the ones I've dealt with, despite the fact that they have not been happy, they've been cordial enough to work with each other to get through this. At least in front of me, they haven't had any battles. I had one where the husband just kind of walked away and left the wife holding the bag with the house, and I worked with her for a while to clear that out. So divorce is another one that I could provide my assistance to. I had mentioned about if you might have seniors that are looking, as I mentioned, at the beginning, about aging in place. That becomes a health and safety issue, quite candidly, because you walk into that. Let's face it, as we get older, physically, mentally, emotionally, we have challenges that arise, and we may not be in a position, especially if our kids have grown and moved out, which many times they have, where we just don't have the capacity, the energy anymore to keep the house neat and orderly, and things pile up. I've seen that over and over again. And my concern when I work with my clients in those capacities is, let's make sure the house is clean enough that you're healthy and as safe as you can be. And the other thing too is that, God forbid, you have a fall in your house and you need the ambulance to come and they need to bring a wheelchair or a gurney in. Your house, if your house is all full of clutter and chaos, they may not be able to get to you, and that could lead to a more devastating outcome.
Definitely, definitely. And another thing that I'm thinking is, really, when you're looking for an organizing company, no matter where you are, really you should meet with them and trust your gut. You really need to know, like, and trust this person in order to spend time with them. Because it sounds like most of the transitions that we were talking about today are painful. You might not think it is, and you might think, oh, I don't care, this is a happy thing for me, and let's just get rid of it. But you're changing an environment. You're letting go of things that you love. And for any death and divorce and any of these situations, even a move, you're happy and you're wanting to go into that new, bigger, better place, or downsizing as we age, right? I mean, that's another big one, I think, because there are more baby boomers right now and seniors in the world than there's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm finding with friends too, that's the thing to do. We love the house, even for me. You know, well, my boys are still hanging around a little bit, but even for me, I'm done. I've had the parties.
Mm-hmm.
I've had parties with 100, 200 people here. I've done the entertaining. I had the fun, and now I want just a small version for myself that's peaceful and calm, and not what something I have to take care of the outside and things break, and you start thinking, having that frame of mind as you get older. But no matter what, if the day comes that I do leave, you're leaving your history.
Mm-hmm.
You're leaving your history behind, and that's got to be painful and difficult for many. So having somebody you can trust and hold their hand and support you in that process is really important. That's what I think. What areas specifically do you cater to? I know you're on Long Island.
Mm-hmm. I travel from the city to the Forks. So I actually just recently went to New Jersey. I just went over the state line just recently, and helped a client. Same thing, mother passed away. She's working in her situation. She doesn't have a lot of family support, and she's she's working really on her own and it's not fortunately, it's not a horrible situation, but it's more the issue that she's alone. She doesn't have the support of different family members to help her get through it. And that's another key thing too, when you're doing any of this, is that, what kind of support system do you have in place with any of those situations, whether it be moving, divorce, passing away, aging in place. Who do you have around you that's going to be there to help you?
Kids move now. It's not important for them to stay with the family, that family unit like they did hundreds of years ago. They go to school, they stay with it, they're in school, and they move away. So yeah, we're a little bit disconnected, if I can use that word. But and you go to Brooklyn, depending on the job. Now, again, not a junk drawer, but you go to Brooklyn, Staten Island, Connecticut? No?
Connecticut's a bit, outside of my band. I've found that, I got plenty of work that keeps me busy here on Long Island. So,
Yeah.
Yes, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Nassau County, Suffolk County. I think I had a client once on Shelter Island. That was pretty cool.
Oh, I would love that. I want to move there.
Yeah, and I always ask people where they find me, because I'm always fascinated. When people call me up and they'll say, "Oh, I want to talk to you about something." And I always ask them, "Where'd you find me?" It's nice to know that I guess whatever I'm doing must be really positive, because a lot of times they'll tell me, "Oh, I just did a search and you popped up." And so the one on Shelter Island, that's what it was. She found me on just doing some kind of an internet search. My name, my company name popped up, The Organized Guy, and we had a nice conversation. And next thing you know, here I was traveling over to Shelter Island.
Now, Vinny, I'm pretty sure that most people that watch this today are going to fall in love with you and your services. Okay. So if, say, somebody's watching in Massachusetts or Florida, say, do you have any kind of a database or where you can maybe give them recommendations?
Absolutely. I'm a
Good.
member of NAPO, the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, but it's NAPO.net. That's the website. I'm part of that organization. I've been a vetted member for as long as I've had my business. And I have had people call, even if they've been local, Susan. Sometimes they're looking for a specific type of organizer, and or I've had people say, they've called me up and they say, "No, I really was looking for a female organizer." I totally get it. So I've always done the same thing. I point them to that website, napo.net, and I tell them, you do a search in there. Anybody that you're going to find on there is vetted by the organization. We're all over the United States, and you'll get somebody local in your area. And you go through the same process, do a little research, look into the people that pop up on your search, and call them all, talk to them all, see if you're comfortable with them.
That's perfect. And I know we're both members of the National Aging in Place Council. And that's a national group, but we are part of the Nassau and Suffolk County chapter here on Long Island.
Right.
So if anybody knows of that organization or needs other resources, just to give them a plug today, you can
absolutely
always reach out to the National Aging in Place Council and find Vinny. Did I miss out? Did we miss anything? I know we covered a lot today. Did you want to add anything about any of your services?
We've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to go over. So I appreciate you being a great moderator in terms of what we talked about today. But I would just let people know they're not alone, regardless of the situation that they're in, whether they're just looking to organize a closet or any of the life transition stuff that we discussed. They're not alone. There's plenty of resources out there. And it's important to find someone who's going to fit what you're looking for. That's why when people call me up about, for the first time and they're looking for a service, I try hard to ask a lot of open-ended questions to get down to what it is exactly they're looking for. And in that, being able to point them in that direction about where we're going to, whether I'm the person or is it another organizer, or, is there some kind of other service that they're looking to get?
I'm not sure where Susan went, but I do want to ask you a question about the career
Sure.
itself. So were you trained to do this, or did this come from some kind of ability that you have? I'm very interested.
Both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah, it's interesting, Lisa, because when I was still working in the corporate world, I was feeling like I was looking for something new to do. And I had, friends that like, would joke with me. They're like, oh, you should just go organize. And, I was like, all right, whatever. Because, they know the way that I'm kind of cut, I don't want to say I'm OCD. I like to do things that are functional, but yes, I like to be organized about it. But I actually looked into it well over 10 years ago. And I was amazed. I never heard of organizing as a industry or career, but I had looked into it and I found out it really was something that existed, and that's where I found the NAPO organization. And as far as the training goes, they provide and offer all kinds of different organizing skills and courses and classes, and I've taken several to get myself started. So I make sure I have a professional standing within the organization. And there's other ones that I see on there, that I see that it's offered that given the type of work I do, there's other ones I'm already planning on taking to add to my resume.
Nice.
One thing I would point out with that, it's kind of an offshoot of it, is that I do get asked often, or at least there's an association that as an organizer, all I deal with is hoarders. And there actually is training to work with hoarders. And it's not, I've met a number of hoarders over my tenure. It's not an area that I've focused on. It's not one that I'm interested in. However, when I've been asked about it, I have other organizers that I know that are on Long Island who are trained in that. And I always point them over to them, or I point them back to NAPO and let them know that there are people that specialize in it, because it is a specialized area of dealing with someone's clutter.
Yes. And personality.
Yeah, because it's not just it goes way beyond organizing. There's a complete psychological side that goes along with it. Sure. And in that respect, it is like the TV shows that you see.
Yes, I'm sure. I don't think we did your contact information. Can you give us all the contact information for people? Go ahead.
So if you want, you could call me or text me at 516-456-3461. Again, that's a phone, that's my mobile number. So you can either call me or text me at that number. You can also reach me at Vinny, VINNIE, at theorganizedguy.com. Or you can get me on my website, which is theorganizedguy.com. And there is a contact page, and I will get that as well.
Great. It's amazing what you do.
Thank you.
Amazing. You're important.
I love it. I do. I love what I do. People think I'm weird, but
No.
Why would you want to deal with someone's stuff? I said, because it's not the stuff. I like working with my clients. I have a lot of great clients. I'm blessed to have them. They're a lot of fun to work with. Most of them. There's some interesting ones out there. Sure. But I love what I do, because they're already under stress and anxiety and all these very negative things. And I just love the opportunity to work with them to figure out, how do I resolve their problem?
Yeah, and you're really helping them.
Thank you.
Supporting them many times at a difficult time in their lives. And
yes, usually.
Yes.
Usually.
Yes. So. And boy, the value of having somebody objective, that is, I can't even put a number on that, tell you the truth. Yeah. I can't thank you enough for being here.
Thank you.
And for Susan to bring you in.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you very much.
Well, absolutely. And we'll get this out there so people can find out about your services and what you do.
Thank you very much.
And so our last thing is we usually say about what we're doing. I know that Susan has a legacy workshop coming up on the 14th, and you should go in and find out more about that. She has eastend.academy. I also do bereavement services. I love doing workshops and individual work to help people move forward or move on with their lives. And life is so precious, as you know, and we need to make the most of every day. So
Keep
I
focused on what's
appreciate it.
important.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Thank you so much. Really great knowing you. And thank you
Thank you,
for
Lisa.
spending your time and letting us know what you're doing here.
Great. It was great. It was great talking to you today. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Take care.
All right. Take care.